everybody. It's lovely to be here, and I'd like to welcome you to our city because it's very easy. I'm aware of where lots of people have travelled many miles to get here. And I was asked last night, how far have you travelled? And I went, just from up the road. The trust is just up the road. So we're very lucky. So hello and welcome. So I've just wanted to talk there. I've taken the lead, as it's been mentioned, but I actually lead on the armed forces within Liverpool Women's Hospital. And this is just an overview of our journey and what we've gone through. And probably we're still on our journey. I have the right one. And I'm no good at which one? That one? Sure. Yeah, I'm no good at IT, as you can tell. So when I first came into the post, as I say, I finished a clinical role, moved over there, and somehow, in whichever way, I ended up with armed forces. And when I inherited it, lots of staff names were on the contact list. There was various meetings and so on. When I was speaking to these staff, most of them went, "Oh, I don't know how my name's on there. Don't know why I'm there. What's that for?" So at first, we were starting right from the beginning. So we got rid of most of the names, not literally, but we got rid of most of the names on the list. We also faced the battle because lots of people thought, as we're a specialist trust, the hint is in the title, Liverpool Women's, and they felt that actually maybe it didn't apply. Maybe armed forces didn't apply because we mainly dealt with women's health. Then we were not quite sure what we were meant to do. So this is me very at the beginning going, flippy heck, what have I landed with? I'm not quite sure here. We wanted to be involved, but we weren't quite sure how we were meant to be involved. And then it was felt that because my role had developed into the widening participation role, that actually it does fit under my remit. But I also wanted to say, I actually wanted to do it. I wanted it to be done properly. I didn't want it to be a tick box. So if I was going to take this on, what did it mean and how did I embed it? I can't bear lots of things, and I can see some heads nodding and you'll understand it. I don't like saying, oh, we've achieved this just because you've ticked the box, okay? I wanted to actually be a part of the heart and soul of what we were doing. So yes, we were puzzled. I was extremely puzzled and thought, flip, I don't even know what I'm doing here. So we had Armed Forces Covenant, I had Veterans Aware. It took me a while. There was 2 awards and, working out what was what. We didn't know how many of our staff were actually part of the Armed Forces family. We didn't know how many of our patients were. It was easy for us to actually say, oh, it doesn't apply to us. Well, actually, how did we know it didn't apply to us? Because we don't know how many were involved. What did it all mean to us? So we began very slowly, and as you can see there, we held our first remembrance service, and you will notice there that we had lots of knitted poppies. In the women's, we have a gang of knitters who are very good. They actually we run a shop called Little Woolens, which is a charity. It's all manned and staffed and stocked by our gang of knitters, all fantastic, okay? They really threw themselves into, didn't know poppies could come in so many different shades of red and different of this, so it was quite fascinating. So though it looks empty the way we've got it there, it actually wasn't. Our main entrance was full, and it was actually on the 11th of the 11th, on the day, and it was 11 o'clock. Staff were asked to come. And as I say, I did worry, would anyone turn up? They turned up. And it was very, very well received. Staff were delighted. And that that gives us encouragement, because what I was picking up was staff believed in this. Every member of staff, they believe that our armed forces should be recognised, that we that we owe them something. And yes, we should be having this remembrance service. So that began our journey. We knew very little, as I've said, I've mentioned it a few times. I think I'm mentioning that a few times here because we really did know very little. So that's why we started. So one of our first actions was that we needed to find out how many of our staff were part of the Armed Forces family. We had word of mouth, but we wanted a more formal record because we knew some staff that were, but what about the rest? Our ESR, I'm not sure if you're aware, it's electronic staff record. Okay, those who work in the NHS will know everything goes through that. All of our staff records, everything's recorded there. And the staff were asked to cleanse the system, because like any system, it can get cluttered with stuff that doesn't need cleansing. And the staff were actually asked the armed forces questions, as such as, are you a veteran? Are you married to a veteran? Married to someone who's serving still? And so on and so forth. We continued slowly, but we began to identify some of our staff who are part of the armed forces family. I laughed. We've got Jo, who's at the end. She was in the military police within there. In the red is Jill. Her son was serving. We've got Peter in the middle. Now, I've known Peter for years, and I have to say, he's the only ex-armed forces I know who looks a scruff bag, okay, in work, because he really does look a scruff bag. And I go, I would never, ever have took him, because obviously next to him is Carl, who served in Afghanistan in the RAF, and Carl always looked like that. He looked, and you could go, he's ex-forces. But Peter is a scruff bag, but and I said that to him, I know him well enough. But it was interesting to know, I'd known him for nearly 15 years. I did not know he was ex-forces, and he actually served in Northern Ireland at the height of the Troubles. And I thought, isn't that fascinating when we don't even know where our colleagues, the background to it? So it was fascinating. And Emily, who's with me, and she'll tell her story. It's her husband who's serving at the current moment. We were looking in the background at what else needed to be done. Everyone was telling me about the Armed Forces Covenant, and we're all like this, and I'm going, what does all this mean? So there, we looked at our trust policies, making sure, did we make allowances for our reservists and different things? We had a steering group set up that was supported by our executive team there, and we also signed the Armed Forces Covenant. Weren't we proud when we did that? You can say, what a proud day. In the height, I was laughing at myself. If you look at me, right, we're outside because we're in the height of the pandemic, okay? So we could take our masks off if we went outside, or we would have had to wear them. And I was laughing because in the corner of my hand, you can see I've got hold of my mask. We were all like that with the mask behind. But it was a really good day. It was a proud day, it felt. And it was funny because we had lots of jokes you will see there. I led Irish Guard, Scottish Guard. It's as bad as mixing the whiskies, isn't it? So be very, very careful, because we actually found that two of our drivers, one was at an Irish Guard and one was an ex-Scottish Guard. Very proud, show the thingy. And one of my colleagues said to the Irish Guard, so are you Scottish Guard? We were, oh, we found out, don't do that, okay? And that's when I was told, that's as bad as mixing your whiskies. We continued on the journey, and as I say, many staff had the idea that it's a women's hospital. It would not apply to us. Why would it apply to us? As not many patients would be connected to the armed forces. Well, I don't know whether you know a lot about Liverpool Women's, but I will say that we deliver approximately 8,000 babies every year. So somewhere along there, some must be connected to armed forces, mustn't be? So it's 8,000 there. Even in this day and age, there were still assumptions made. It doesn't apply. It doesn't apply. So that's how far back in our journey we were actually doing. But we didn't actually have the record, so we couldn't actually say either way. We couldn't say it didn't apply, and I couldn't say that it did, because we didn't know. We began a new Meditech system, which is where everything's recorded, all the patient details, about our patients coming in and all their personal data. That system was established in the trust about 12 months ago, and that was the opportunity when we were actually enabled to put in the armed forces questions. And knowing NHS, and I'm sure my colleagues from the NHS will agree, we made those questions mandatory, okay? So no one could skip past them. Because if we hadn't done that, they would have just done, in the busyness of the area, they would have just moved on forward. It's not perfect data, but at least we're starting to get some data. So we're showing there, not ex-services, dependent of ex-services. We've got 7 staff. Veteran or currently serving, 74. We never knew any of this, you say. Ex-service there. And that one where it says null, we've found a discrepancy because it means if you book into the hospital that way, we ask you the formed questions. If you book in yourself that way, we don't ask those questions. So it's just showing, that's why I said we're at the beginning of the journey of collecting that data. So our patients may not be veterans. I know we can have some women who are veterans, so please, I'm not being sexist, so apologies for that. Most of our patients don't appear to be veterans, okie doke, but it's still important for so many reasons. So what we have to look at, do our patients actually live with veterans who are suffering maybe with PTSD, who are serving and who are away? And one of my experiences when I was still nursing in a clinical role, I was the ward manager on the ward, and a lady was told she was 20 weeks pregnant, that there's things gone wrong with the pregnancy. It was not going to be able to continue. She was going to have to actually abort that baby and all that. You can imagine how upsetting it was. Extremely upsetting for her. Made worse, my husband was over in Germany, was serving in Germany. So then we began the journey off. We needed to get hubby over. We needed to get home. And I do laugh, and I was laughing with Gang, because I go, even though I'm on the ward, long and confused, and how do we get hold? How do we get hold of the camp there? And I ended up speaking to the commanding officer at the base over in Germany. I actually stood up, you know. I stood up because I was talking to someone, and I was going, I thought, I can't talk to him. He's the commanding officer in the... So it was quite funny. I thought, you can't see me, we're on the phone, but I stood up because I thought, can't sit down talking to him. But we were explaining the situation, and I have to say, gladly, they got him home the next day. He was flown home. We were explaining the situation. But it brings to mind is how devastating for the woman, but how devastating for dad as well. Because she's on her own here getting there. But what horrible news for dad to get in Germany, and he's probably desperate to get home. So, but working together, we managed to get him over, and he was able to support his wife through what they were going through. Our staff, as I say, we name some of them. We don't know all the ones who are veterans or not. I had a really big learning curve. Yes, I knew ones like Carl, looked very dapper, very proud of his thing. I didn't know that Joe was military police in a previous life. Makes it excellent to be a midwife, okay, to sort out those midwives. They need someone like the military to keep them in order. Have they got relatives who are serving? My thought was actually some of these people, you know, our staff, have they got relatives? Have they got husbands, you know, children or whatever in active service and everything? How are we supporting them when they go? They're meant to come into work, but they know that their son or whoever is in a battlefield. How horrendous is that? So we wanted to know how they were impacted. And I'm going now to hand it over to Emily, who's a colleague, who will tell you her journey and how, because I think, and she'll hate me for saying it, I think she's tremendous for what she does. So...
Well, thank you for the very flattering introduction and for inviting me to speak. So my name's Emily Anderson. I'm a doctor and I work as a consultant in clinical genetics at the Liverpool Women's Hospital. I'm married with 2 children, and this is a photo from a very chilly New Year's Day walk. And as those of you who eagle-eyed might have spotted from the very fetching bobble hat, my husband is in the Royal Navy. So he works as a lieutenant. He started off as a reservist and then became full-time in the Navy. He is currently working as an officer in 809 Naval Air Squadron, which is based down at RAF Marham. And at risk of stating the blindingly obvious, RAF Marham is in Norfolk, which is not very near Liverpool. So we live apart, as a previous speaker was saying, so we're one of these dispersed families. So when I heard that Liverpool Women's were signing up for the Armed Forces Covenant, I was really surprised because I was in one of the camps of, I'm not sure this is very relevant, I was surprised to hear that the hospital were going down this route, and again, guilty of many of the assumptions that Anne has mentioned. I think for me, the challenges of working as a consultant in the NHS while having a husband who's in the military and having 2 children to navigate in the mix is tricky. And I think one of the biggest challenges for us is that separation and that constant change. So Friday rolls round, he comes home, it's great. Sunday rolls round, he's leaving, and it's a big upheaval for all of us. And for me, I see the value in Liverpool Women's Hospital being part of the Armed Covenant is actually, it's that recognition, as has been mentioned a number of times already. The Armed Forces Covenant means that although the hospital might not know everything there is to know about the military, it's that statement that actually that conversation is there to be had. So when I've had conversations about altering my hours or flexibility or needing to make changes to adjust to the fact that you know, my husband's not here in the week and actually I'm juggling that on my own, that's been really productive and really constructive, those conversations that we've had. It's been really interesting hearing the talk so far, and I'm definitely going to be looking more at the little troopers, and because it can be quite a lonely world being in a dispersed family, that actually we don't live on a base, we don't see other military families. Our children are in a school where, as far as I'm aware, there are no other military children. So hearing about all of this is so helpful, and actually having that from my employer as well, that actually that there's some recognition there that it's not a magic wand that will make life easier, but it means that there's definitely scope for conversations to be had is really a positive step as far as I'm concerned. We've potentially got some longer deployments coming up. We've had one longer deployment in the past, and we've got some more coming up in the near future. And I think, again, having that ability to go to my employer and say, well, okay, this is a specialist women's hospital. Again, we may not have many veteran patients, perhaps. And as a geneticist, I have so little to offer the military. My branch of medicine is not something that's needed in terms of traditional military medical overlap, but actually knowing that those conversations can be had is really, really valuable. I don't think I have a lot else to say other than thank you for taking the time to listen. And I think having this session for the focus to be on families and children and partners is really valuable. And I'll be around if anyone's got any questions later on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and again, I didn't know Emily before we started our journey. Now I know Emily well, don't we? And as I say, tremendous support. In my mind, I just think consultant to young children. She's like a single parent trying to juggle all of that. It's amazing what she does, though she's very humble and doesn't take that praise often. We carried on our journey. Another proud moment. We got the Silver Award in the MOD Employer Recognition Service. It was tough going, but we got it, and we were so proud. And you can see us receiving our award. And more and more getting even to go to that event for that awarding of the silver, you're wrapped up into the military thing, and I'm beginning to realize, even in my own head, that I'm going, our military means so much to me. And that's why we were saying, we were here last night at the service when they were playing the band, even when they played the national anthem, we stood up. You know, I was so proud of our military. I was brought up in, my dad didn't serve, he'd done his national service just after the war, but I had a family that were very, very proud of our armed forces, and made me, that's bedded in my upbringing. That's what I truly believe in. So all of this is very rewarding for me. It's a long journey, but look what we're doing. We got, not forgetting, our other proud moment is that we got Veterans Aware, and so that is displayed proudly in our main entrance. So hopefully it's a sign to all people coming into us. Yes, we embrace the military. Yes, we look at this, and we're very much looking at the things like, you know, what we're saying is like, if you move, why should you lose your place? You know, if you get moved around as you can in the military, why should you lose your place? What is it? How, you know, how is that affecting our patients as well? So don't forget, 8,000 babies somewhere along the line, the military are involved in that, aren't they? So in conclusion, I'd just like to say we started on a journey. And yes, We've learned lots of things, especially about the whiskey, okay? Never mix your whiskey and don't mix the Irish Guard or the Scottish Guard up. It's spoken about now and there's an awareness there. Everyone there is on the agenda, even right up to the trust board. It's something that is very much people are aware of, whereas before we never thought it was connected to the women's. We now know it is. So I would say the thing I remember sometimes when you can get a little bit disheartened and thinking, are we making any headway? Sometimes we look backwards and go, well, we started from there and we're here. And we have to remember that it is an ongoing journey and it will continue to be that. But also what we very much say, yes, it certainly does apply to Liverpool Women's Hospital. Thank you very much for your time.